So I was walking with my wife yesterday. Actually, we were in the down in our creative space, and we were having to do some work. And I wasn't really feeling the work, but I needed to run upstairs real quick, and I was going to come up to the studio, and I had to do a couple little things. A lot of it was to be able to avoid the work that my wife and I were doing. But as I went to walk up the stairs, she knew I was coming up here to the studio, and she was like, "Oh, are you going to your happy place?" And it just made my heart sing because she understands that being here with all of you, doing the podcast, interviewing some of the most iconic people in the world, and all of them give advice to my kids by name. Doing this part is a real happy place for me. And I tell you, I got an email yesterday, and a comedian or an artist was actually supposed to be in studio today. And he reached out to me and said, "Hey, I couldn't be there." And I instantly almost had a sigh of relief. And because I wanted to have this young man on, my buddy, my friend, the world, every one of you guys probably knows him as the absolute motivator. Some people know him as Superman. Other people know him as James Dixon, probably one of the most impactful motivational speakers in the world. But to me and my family, we know him as Uncle James. And so I get to share him with you today. I get to have some fun with my friend. Buckle your seatbelt and cancel the HR department because we're about to get this party started.
Nothing more on my mind. I got to shine, so every day I grind. Work in the morning, work in the evening. We's achieving, cause we believing. It's for certain, we put the work in. We ain't stopped just because it's hurting. Right before your eyes, so it's coming to no surprise. The takeover is televised. Over and over and over again. Make no mistake, we continue to win. Defeat never known, cause I will not lose. They wanna mimic my moves, but can't walk in my shoes.
Hide your kids. Hide your wife. How you doing, James?
Man, dude, I'm good. Hey, I'm surprised you have that hate culture guy at the start of your intro, Damien. He sings that song about amputees.
Hey, that was one of my favorite points of the night that night, man. Being there at the Vibe Room, and having him sing the song. Can you tell us what the song was?
It was something about so what you lost 5 toes, something like that. I felt very like he was talking directly to amputees. I was like, who comes up with a song 5 toes down? And I'm the only amputee in the room. It felt personal. I was like, is this like a roast? He's like, you got 5 toes. I was like, who else does that apply to?
We need to have Damien on. Hey, hold on for 1 second because my camera is lagging. This is what I love about being live. I'm going to switch out cameras just for a second. Hold on for a second. This is the joy of doing live stuff, James.
Yeah, that's it, man.
We have live.
Man, I love that. Is that a 1970s basement behind you there? The
Always
wooden
run the
panels.
risk of having something. There we go. Now I'm back. Now you can see me. All right, James.
There we go.
So that was so cool. And having the Vibe Room, I felt what was it, the third or fourth one? You and I just got to go back and forth, which is probably one of my favorite times at the Vibe Room.
Yeah, one of the great things about the Vibe Room, man, is that it's what we're doing live, but man, it's a difference. We're like here, people are watching, some people are listening, but there they get to witness it, and it's totally different when you get an eyewitness to experience things. And then the way that you always promote businesses, you promote people. In fact, that's like a superpower of yours. You're able to take people who may have a Robin talent and make them Batman, and they walk out of there feeling like they joined the Justice League. But you elevate people. You take it from where they were to where they can be, and proof of it is look what's happening with me.
Well, I mean, look at you, right? And we talked about this. A lot of people, the world knows you as the absolute motivator. Some people know you as the #1 motivational speaker in the world, which is James Dixon. For me, I know you as Uncle James and the guy who literally gives me the business no matter what. We're constantly on the phone, texting back and forth. And how do you choose what you allow the world to be able to see?
Man, here for me, it's all about you know, it depends on angles. So if I feel bloated, I'm careful and I put a vest on, I cover it up, and I suck in at all times. If it but it is all about everyone has times where you're more transparent, more vulnerable, or or maybe you're more humorous, and it depends on where you are emotionally. For me, it really is about the vibe, right? It's about the atmosphere that's created. Is it a safe space for me to be open? Anytime you put me in an atmosphere, I know I can be transparent and it's built off the relationship. I can share things that I would never share anywhere else because you pull that from me and the audience needs that and they actually get to learn something. But if I'm being interviewed on local ABC, right? Then on there, I'm going to be very different than I am with you because with you, there's no guard up. You push through that anyway. You're like you do what um you're kind of like a magician, man. You be talking to us, and next thing you know, man, you don't pull the trick, and next thing you person is sharing with them how they smoke crack for 4 years, and they never intended to tell anybody that, but then you turn that into a joke, and but it literally is about being where you're comfortable and will it help someone, right? If it'll help some people, then I'll be more open or whatever. But I'll never put myself in a situation where I'm being transparent and it's being wasted. I can't cast pearls before swine.
So talk to me too about this, because I think a lot of times people see you, and I've heard this a lot. Oh, James burst on the scene. I know you didn't. I know you don't burst on any scene. The work that is put in is tremendous. You're one of the best. I've never used this word with you, but wordsmiths that I've ever seen. When you do a keynote for a company, you'll actually have a conversation with the CEO like 2 minutes before you go on stage, and then take his story and weave it into your keynote. And this is masterful. I've never seen somebody be able to do it at the level that you do it at. What was the practice to be able to get to the point where you could do that, like with the snap of a finger?
Man, okay, you know how when you have family reunions, if you don't, I'll just tell you what a black family reunion is like, right? So, and yes, there are dads there. Somebody
Yeah.
does. So
I was just about to ask that.
I already knew where you're going
Yeah.
because if you wouldn't, Brad would. So anyway, so when we're sitting there and you have this your family gathering, they'll just grab you and be like, "Hey, go tell something funny or tell a story." And it's impromptu, and everybody turns and looks like, "All right, boy, be funny," right? And so you're put in a situation where it's impromptu, do it right now, or hey, tell them what happened the other day, and everyone turns and looks at you and waits on it. And as a result of it, you start getting in these reps. And if you can perform in front of the most critical people of you ever, family, right? And if then you can always open up and do that elsewhere. I look back over my life, everything that I've ever done prepared me for the things I do today. It was all kindergarten, but now it's a little different, man, because folks look for you to you make a mistake. They wait for one of the greatest things I have is after I finish speaking, people are like, James, if you could say ask again. Like as if that's a challenge. They're like, it's great that you were able to put all those sentences together. You were able to bring in all these great things, but that one word. And I was like, well, that's the Indiana in me.
Now, this was the thing too, because I was talking with a comedian the other day, and they were talking about the crafting of a joke, right? And so
Right.
whenever someone talked about writing a joke, it eluded me, my mind. I didn't understand it. And then when he started to talk about the composition of a joke, drawing somebody in, and then sometimes there being a surprise or being an irony or being, so he broke down the different types. But to a person like you, these things come natural. Do you look at it after the fact and systemize it, or did you learn to do it through a system?
Well, man, it's funny. You almost have. I watched how old people would tell stories, and some of them are really good at it. Like, wait a minute, wait till you hear this, whatever, right? And sometimes when you go back and you retell the story to people, it never hits the same way. You're like, man, I wish you could have heard it from them. It was funnier if you'd been there. But I worked on being able to translate that story even better than I first heard it. And it's like you and I were at a very sensitive thing, and a young lady chose to share her story about what she had went through and about losing her life or wanting to unalive herself. And she was like, I've been through this and I've never told anyone. And she made the mistake of telling Kelly Cardenas. But here's the powerful thing about Kelly. Kelly will take the thing that you're insecure about, and this is the system, right? Take something that somebody feels a sense of shame of, and turn that story in a moment to give them glory, God glory with it. Because you can go back and reframe it. Instead of you being ashamed, it can be the very thing that gives you a name. You took a young girl who had been in a coma. She was what, 12? No one's off limits with Kelly. And Kelly's like, instead of just talking about, hey, I was in a coma, just you have a superhero name. She's like, what's that name? Nap Girl. You just take naps for a long time, And so next thing I know, I see the little girl like take and empower herself with that. It's like, hey, I'm that girl, and told her story rather than it being people feel like, oh, I'm so sorry what happened to you. Then it became funny and engaging. Hey, you got to hear her tell her story. Other people were quick to go tell it. And it was like, that's the system. Being able to take something that would normally be shameful, painful, and then helping people find a way to dial in so that people will want to listen.
Well, was it the system for you first? Because for me, I work backwards. So I just go try it. Like I remember when you were talking about the lady that shared with me about wanting to unlife herself. I literally stayed up till 4:00 that morning trying to craft how I was going to land this thing. Right. And because it's a sensitive subject, when you go into it, sensitive, all the things, but for me, it was go and do it. And then when I looked back at it, I was like, okay, there was the craft. For me, watching you, it almost seems like you just go do it. And then people are so enamored by it that they're like, oh, wow, how can I do it? And then you have to turn around and say, this was the system. Or do you start with the system first?
All right. Let me tell you this. There's always a thought running through my head. Like, so when I'm looking down or whatever, I've already thought it like 4 sentences ahead now. So I know where I'll go. So the system becomes like you throw out any word for a moment, Kelly. Just any
Jolly
word.
Green Giant.
Jolly Green Giant was always considered to be a logo, but there's something about being more than a logo. Same as the NBA had Jerry West, that was what he was. But that can be your story as well. The very thing that makes you unique or odd, whether you're tall, whether your color is off, whether people use things against you, can be the thing that makes you stand out. You can be the Jolly Green Giant of your own life. You can be the Jolly Green Giant that you follow me? I
Yeah.
just take something, find something connected with, bring it back to a logo, find something positive, but I'm already thinking of where I can go with it, and I can just expound on those things.
Did you guys as a kid, did you ever practice that part of it? Because I remember what's funny about it that you say it is because I used to challenge kids at the coffee bar. When I worked at this I worked at a salon in San Diego, and sometimes there was no clients. So I challenged them while we're sitting there. And I said, let's see if you can tell a story based off of just what we did. right? Just
Right.
that part of it. Was that something that you practiced? Like, did you practice consciously that, or are you now looking, because you're coaching some of the, I mean, most prolific speakers in the world, they're actually saying your words. That's the amazing thing about you, right? It's not only James Dixon, who is the number one motivational speaker in the world, that you're hearing James's voice, but guys, there's so many people out there that are speaking that you don't understand that James actually wrote the words.
Yeah. You said something that's wonderful that I want to give. Do you remember the story about the little kid that was digging to China? And he dug a hole, and then there was a kid in China, and they met halfway. It was a kid's story. Do you remember
Okay.
that story?
I don't remember. I don't know what,
Yeah.
I
So
don't know what
obviously
elementary school you
you,
went to.
yeah,
I
you
don't.
had no bookmobile. Obviously, yeah, you didn't have and I'm not going to let you make me say the word library.
Did
So
you? Yeah.
it's yeah. So anyway, we went. So I remember getting this, reading the story, and then I took my shovel, my grandmother's shovel, and I started digging in her rose garden. She's like, "Baby, what are you doing?" I said, "Grandma, I'm going to meet that Chinese kid," and I started just digging in it.
You didn't just
But
go
you
down to
see
the liquor
how
store?
yeah, and I'm like, man, about 10 minutes in, I'm in. I think so you have these experiences in life that end up giving you fuel for your storytelling because of something that funny, moronic, whatever that happens. You never know what is shaping in you so that you can use it to change a shape of a situation. So any moment you can pull from that. And I love being able to just help other people find that story in themselves. You'll have
How,
people who start off with horrible ways to tell their story. And you're like, no, you have to be able to get people empowered, engaged, capture their attention, draw them in, and then help them see the win.
how do you, though, when you, because we've seen it before where a person will not very masterfully tell their story, right? So the story is there, but they maybe emphasize a different, a different part of the story that probably shouldn't be emphasized at the time. Do you think that every single person can be coached into the place, or do they have to have something for you to be able to work off of?
Well, it's funny. You can look at there are some people who show up and they have a great voice. So you can start off with a bass and they're easy to listen to. Some people have a great personality or a phenomenal look, but they have a horrible way of telling their story. They speak from from their lungs, and so they're short of breath, and so you hear all those in between it, and so you can fix some of those things. Those are technique. But the truth is, many are called, few are chosen. In this realm, just because you've been speaking all your life doesn't mean you're called to be a speaker. A speaker is such a unique thing. It's like every day I see you take a Proverbs and you make that thing a part of your life and you speak into other people's lives. Not everyone has the gift or the ability to be able to take that inspiration, internalize it, and then this, give it to other people in a way that they can receive it without even knowing the source. The tactic you use when you're like, hey, write down these things. Bill Gates said that they asked the top 10 people in the world for advice. If you write this down, here's what Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs had to say concerning procrastination. And then people write it all down and say, well, actually, it didn't come from them. It came from God. And you have people who are not believers who've already written down these precepts and ideas, and they're like, oh my God, this is what he said, this is how it goes. And then they're like, wait a minute, that's actually good wisdom. Not everyone has the ability to dissect something and then be able to share it and draw people in. But everyone can improve from where they were to a place of where they're competent and comfortable, at least telling their own story. If you're a sales professional, if you need to speak to investors, we can help you increase that. But it doesn't mean you need to be on stage talking. That isn't for everyone.
Talk to me too about some of the experiences that you've been having in the last, I mean, I don't know when you were on the podcast last, but you were during the election time, you were in some pretty special places.
Oh man.
You just had a really cool experience going back to GM
Yep.
and speaking there. Can you talk about that part of it and share with them? Because I always want to showcase your journey, because people will see it and they'll see, you're everywhere. Like, and the thing that I didn't mention in the intro, which is nuts, is, we were just looking at a TEDx talk, right? And this TEDx talk
Right.
was from 13 years ago. Thing had 3,400 views. You
Yep.
just posted a talk, and when you post a talk on Absolute Motivation, if you're not on there, you guys need to check it out. This thing right now, I believe, is 95,000 views, and this is within weeks. You produce content that has more views than any TEDx, that has more views than, it's 10 times what it is. So when people are seeing that part of it, I want them to know the experiences that you've been able to have, again, since you've been on the podcast last. Start with the GM
Yeah.
part, because it freaks me out.
Well, you actually, last time I was on the show, you brought on, you introduced me and you said something about, hey, listen, I want to take an inner city kid and give him an opportunity. I didn't take offense to it or anything like that. You kept asking me about Juneteenth and stuff, but I want to get beyond that and to the more important thing that, can we be serious just
Yeah,
a moment,
yeah.
John?
Let's say,
I'm answering about my
hey,
life. You asked
dude,
me.
if they soundbite this, right, they're gonna soundbite it and be like, oh, Kelly said this about James, and then I'll say, yes, I did, and I feel that way strongly towards him.
Yeah. Well, I want to say, first of all, some amazing things have happened. I want to teach something, a lesson I learned. So I get invited for election night, and I walk in with the Attorney General of Utah, Sean Reyes. And when I get there, they give you credentials based on who you are. They look your name up, and they've done this stuff. And they gave me this special pendant to go around your neck, lanyard to let you in. So they give one to everyone, but mine is red, his is blue, and I asked the difference. And they said, you have carte blanche. You can go anywhere. You're like MVP, he's VIP. And I was like, wow, wait a minute. And as I'm walking away from that, first I went like, yeah, that's cool. But then I felt bad because this brother's with me. He actually has done some stuff. So I go back to the counter and I'm like, hey, listen, I don't know if you know, but this is the Attorney General. I make sure, and I say it in a very deep voice, like, Attorney General of Utah, and you gave me this one. And she was like, you want to be with your friend? I was like, yes, if you don't mind. I think I'm going to get him upgraded. Nope, they demoted me. Yeah, they said, here, just take it back. And I was like, I wanted to say like, no, I don't want to be with him, but I had to
Yeah.
play like that loyalty card and be like, no, that's my boy. We're gonna go ahead and I was like, man, I should have just shut up, man. We could have traded, let you go back there and something. But anyway, to be there with Dana White, to be there with Elon, to be there with the president elect, to be there with all these policymakers, and to be able to speak in other lives, to talk to them. You see, I look at the fact that I was on a factory floor 2 years ago, and now I'm here. I leave there and I go speak at GM for Veterans Day, and they have the Medal of Honor people there. And then they hear me speak, and I spend an evening with them, and they ask me to start coaching the Medal of Honor recipients. And then they say, we actually want you to speak at a major event, and we'd like to present you with the award yourself as a recipient for service award. Moments like that, man, how do you beat that, right? And so then I'm at the Army Navy game. I get to speak on the field, talk to these players, interact with them. I'm on the field. It's cold as hell, and Army lost, but it was not my fault. If they listened to the speech better, they would have won. So to leave there, man, I'm sitting there and I'm seeing the president is there and all that stuff. I mean, like, I'm being in all these places to be able to be with Warrior Rising and speaking 2,500 people at the Echoes Theater in Utah with Nate Bargatze, and then leave, go to Tennessee where they gave me a wonderful watermelon with the logo on it, It was
Hey,
unique.
hey, did you catch that one right off the bat? Because I caught that one that morning, and when we walked into that place, and it said the absolute motivator, it said the absolute, and it did have your name on it.
Yeah,
It did.
but who thought was the idea? Like, hey, you know what James would really like? There's no place where I said I was vegan or that I was really into fruit,
Oh
and
my
so
gosh!
to have a carved out watermelon for me, and I was like, did everyone get one or just me? And yeah, it was just me.
It was
You
just you,
know?
and the only thing better would have been if the owner of the hotel would have been dressed up in a Colonel Sanders outfit. That
Yeah,
would have made it even better for me.
yeah, so that was unique. And they were like, "You want to take pictures?" No, I'm not going to take pictures with the watermelon. So I never did. I appreciate
But
it.
it had your
So I
name on
thought,
it, man. It had your
yeah,
name on
I
it.
thought it would only be one. Then I get to my room and there's a watermelon in there. I'm like, I never said I was an enthusiast about the watermelon, but it was good
Oh
though.
my
It was
gosh.
good. It really was. It
Oh.
was sweet, never, but anyway, I wasn't going to we go from that moment to having sitting there with Martha Stewart and being on stage with her and spending time with her talking and stuff like that. And I'm like, man, my steps have been ordered even when I thought I didn't and have steps to take. I realized that everything that I was doing, from the steps of learning to walk to the steps of leaving a job, they said that's a big risk. No, it was the best risk showing up and then you and I doing this same podcast before everything took off to people. So in everyone's eyes, 2 years ago, I come out of nowhere. But that's not the truth. The truth is, man, that I was a seedling that had to go through the dark season, being covered, ignored, and then watered. And then I had to rely on the SUN, right? But I thought, man, get daylight. But it's the SON that really opened the door. You see, the more committed I got there, the more committed opportunities came to me. And then I got to a point where I was like, man, I'm not going to be afraid to talk about faith, fun, laugh, all that stuff. And even though they said, hey, listen, that'll get you, no one will bring you in and all that stuff, the more committed I've gotten, the more I've been able to rise. But it's biblical. He said, if I be lifted up, I'll draw all men of myself. And so the more I lift his name up, the more I've gone up. And it doesn't mean we need to be perfect or this idea of like, hey, I'm flawlessness or quote a verse. I love the fact that you give people a verse without giving them the address. You'll talk about the philosophy behind the word of God without telling them it came from this verse. So you're not beating them down with something. You lift them up with it.
Talk to me too about the next generation, right? So we've had these conversations about you getting to experience some amazing things. I mean, that story that you just talked about of since the last time going to being there at the election with Elon, with the president, with the attorney general. Martha Stewart, Nate Bargatze, being able to have your own watermelon carved out in Nashville. I mean, these are things that most people don't get the opportunity to be able to do. But when it comes to the next generation and raising our kids, how do we balance that part of it, right? Because you put in the work and then it's natural. We just want to bring our kids along, or in, Biden's sense, we just want to, erase anything that
My
was
kid
wrong.
never did it. He's the smartest kid I know. He don't even know how to use a laptop. It's not his. What's password is Joe's my dad? No, my kid would never do that, man. What kind of stuff is this? I'm talking about like, look, man. I have had the balance dealing with like, take my son for example, balancing like, man, I want to give him everything and put him on red carpets. He says he wants to do it. I make that stuff happen now. He's hanging out with Neil McDonough, man, hanging out with the dude from Ghostbusters or Quentin from Blindside or whatever. You put him in all these scenarios, and then you look over and your kid's wearing designer clothing and stuff, and you all of a sudden you realize they don't know the cost, not the cost of the clothes, but the cost of the opportunity. And so they can't really appreciate it. And so you have to let them earn it and have to leave things for them to fight to get through. It's kind of like this. You're gonna love this. I want my son and daughter to be a beast, but I was making a mistake in making them a zoo lion. You see, zoo lions, you throw food to them and they just eat. They walk around. They can live a long life, but they'll lead a lazy life. They're prone to depression and high blood pressure and all these things because it's a sedentary life. Whereas you take a look at a wild lion, he must fight for everything, scratch for everything, hunt for everything. Nothing is given to him that is dead. Somebody just throws it over a fence. He goes and gets it. I want the kids to be a beast, and I want them to learn to suffer well. Shaq said, my kids aren't rich, I am. You know, it's they get the benefit of what you have, but they must earn it. Otherwise, it'll be lost. What would it matter to them, our kids, if they never go through struggle? If we make it so easy that life just comes to them simply by the fact that that's my kid, you see, you don't win.
How do you work that out? I mean, Brooke and uh, and I'm sure you do this. Maybe you don't because you're maybe a perfect human being. But I remember when we first had kids, and we would go to Maui, and we like staying at the Four Seasons. Well, we were saying that we wanted to raise our kids with some grit. So what we were going to do is bring a nanny and have our kids stay at Motel 6 while we stayed at the Four Seasons. Are there places where you and Nikki are like, hey, we're going to do this? I mean, where you kind of go old school a little bit?
Man, I got to share something with you that I think is great. I was uh, with brother Ward. He had a concept he taught me. He was like, he has some wonderful kids that are from Utah, and he said, I want my kids to learn to overcome. And so he took his oldest son and let him get on a meth. By putting him out there, the kid learned to overcome. No, no, no. It's no, no. It is letting your kids, like, man, they can fall off the tricycle, tell them to get back on, and make it fun that they fell, and that the scar is a reward, not a punishment. What we're doing is like, man, listen, you are going to go through these things. If I give you the impression that life is going to be easy, I'm lying to you. You will feel insignificant. You'll even feel guilty about having success when you're around people who haven't had it. Or they'll make you feel bad that you ain't even been through nothing. So it sounds cool when you hear like Ice Cube, gangster. Then you find out he comes out from a two-parent family, that he's got a 30-something 6-year-old marriage. They live in a gated white community. There is nothing gangster about Ice Cube except for the name. And even that is why we have to watch this thing of perception and raise our kids in reality. You don't have to pretend to be tough, inner city. You don't have to pretend to be something that you're not. But what you are is enough. But you got to go through something to become something.
Well, going through what you have, even in the positive part, right? So there's a positive. Sometimes when somebody sees a positive circumstance, they look back and they think, "Oh wow, that's all gravy." Whereas when you moved to Utah, it was a really positive thing, but there were some challenges in that situation too. Am I correct?
Oh man, yeah, I've had some cultural things that I have to adjust, man. And you know what I love is the fact that they were like, "Hey James, have you met Thurl Bailey?" And I was like, "No, I haven't." But they assume I know every other black person. That's the first thing. Like there's a directory. When you move into a city, they're like, "Hey, hey, black person number 75 just entered the territory," and there's a beat that goes off or something. Like, oh my goodness, man, what you doing here? I didn't know you were here. You know, but then they were like, "Hey, listen." You know what would be fun? If you two played one on one. And I was like, what about me being an amputee and him being 6'11" made you think I would play him? And why don't we go lift weights? What made you want me? They just assume, hey, let the two black guys guard each other. We are all not LeBrons. Some of us are a little less, like a Jordan or something.
Did you handle him though?
Well, let me tell you, I wasn't. My pride kicked in. I was like, he's 6'11", but he's like 180 pounds, right? So I just pushed him out to the 3-point line. And so when he missed, I'm like, that's good. That's all I need. Yeah, the fact that I made him miss, that's good enough, man. 6'11" though, he got that off. He got the shot off still. But then they like, I can't take too much pride in it because I think Thurl might be 90. But I love him because he's still out there, though. You know.
tell me the difference between coaching it and doing it.
Oh man, here's the thing. What I found out about coaching needs to be. You need to. I have to learn. I have to be with people who want it more than anything, who feel a calling to do it, but not so much that there's so much ambition that they're willing to be dishonest or deceptive or by any means necessary, but by doing it with integrity and they really want to grow and they're willing to go through the process. And then they can take criticism and not coach hop every other week. Because there are some people who the first time you start telling them something, they're like, yeah, then a week later they're signing up, hey, listen, my last coach didn't teach me anything. Those are warning shots to me. If you tell me the last coach was trash, it's probably the student. So I won't work with. But I've learned that I'd rather do than coach because doing is my calling. Coaching is almost like you need to have some Jack Grout, some people who maybe don't have that great skill set, but they have the heart set for it. And so they can teach you to do what they can't do. But it's a reason why Michael Jordan was such a failure at coaching and, picking coaches and running. I mean, he was one of the greatest top 3 of all time, because he never scored 100 like Wilt and he never scored all the points that LeBron did. But anyway, I won't get into that. But I love you. I hate that I got to go. I mean, I know we agree in that thing, but.
Hey, shoot Maddox and McKenna some quick advice before you go.
Okay, guys, as I have you here, let me do this. I've got, so this is my message as I wrap up this show, and these are some people you're going to love, man. You're going to introduce you to some people. I'm on the Kelly Cardenas show. Kelly has been making fun of amputees, and so I'm defending my honor. So I'm going to say this for your kids. First of all, Maddox, man, your heart is what you lead with. And because of that, you will always be a leader of men because you love people, you love serving, but you also have that dog in you. And that is a rare combination. To have a leader that can fight and love somebody, he's the dude that will beat up the bully and then pray with him. Maddox, keep being that great kid. Now, McKenna, you just got a wonderful car. And I'm sorry your dad didn't just go buy you a brand new Rolls Royce like he has. But I love you. We're going to make sure you get one. Uncle James is disappointing your dad that he doesn't get your car detailed every week like he does his own. But I love you, and I'll be talking to you. Hey, brother, I love you.
Love you, man. Have fun, buddy.
Okay.
All right, bud.
All right, how do you get off this prepaid
Here
phone?
we go. I'll get you off. I'm cutting you off. There we go. I cut him off. That's James Dixon, the absolute motivator. This is honestly not only one of the greatest speakers in the world, but also an incredible human being. Absolute Motivation. You have to go check that out. It is an unbelievable channel. 1.5, I think, and counting, 1.5 million subscribers on it. 10 to 12 times the views of any TEDx talks that go onto that. So, but I think the coolest thing with Uncle James is the fact that he's my friend, my brother, and I'm cheering for him always. So hopefully you had a phenomenal time with the podcast today. Check out Inchstones also, and then you have to meet my friends, where I call my friends randomly while I'm live on the podcast, which is incredible. And also subscribe to our Substack. I hope you have a phenomenal day. My name is Kelly Cardenas, and I'm officially off the hot seat. Peace, love, and soul.
Nothing more on my mind. I got to shine, so every day I grind. Work in the morning, work in the evening. We's achieving. achieving, cause we believing. It's for certain, we put the work in. We ain't stopped just because it's hurting. Right before your eyes, so it's coming to no surprise. The takeover is televised.